Imagine holding a coin that doesn't just celebrate a president, but an entire era of American history. A coin struck not in copper or nickel, not even in standard silver, but in 24-karat gold. That's exactly what the United States Mint did in 2014. For the 50th anniversary of one of the most iconic coins ever made, the Kennedy half-dollar. Now here's the shocker. Collectors have paid over $10,000 for pristine examples of this coin, graded by PCGS as PR70 DCAM, designated first strike. Yes, you heard that right. A modern gold half-dollar selling for 5 figures. Because when it comes to numismatics, history, condition, and demand all collide in powerful ways. Let's set the stage. The original Kennedy half-dollar debuted in 1964, just months after the tragic assassination of President John F. Kennedy. Americans were still grieving, and the coin was rushed into production as a national tribute. The design, created by chief engraver Gilroy Roberts and assistant engraver Frank Gasparo, featured Kennedy's profile on the obverse and the presidential seal on the reverse. The coin instantly became a sensation. People hoarded the 1964 half-dollar straight from banks. For many Americans, the Kennedy half-dollar wasn't just pocket change, it was a piece of history, a memorial they could hold. Fast forward 50 years to 2014, the Mint decided to do something extraordinary. To honor the coin's half-century mark, they issued a $9.99 fine 24-karat gold Kennedy half-dollar, struck at the West Point Mint. This wasn't just a novelty, it was a bold statement. The U.S. Mint had never issued a gold half-dollar before. The coin weighed 3/4 of a troy ounce of pure gold, with a face value of just 50 cents, but a precious metal content worth hundreds of dollars. It was packaged in elegant cases, accompanied by certificates, and struck with beautiful proof surfaces showing deep cameo contrast. Now, why do collectors go crazy for coins like this? 2 words, scarcity and condition. Even though the Mint produced these coins in the tens of thousands, only a fraction have been preserved in the absolute. Top-grade PCGS PR70 DCAM. That means perfect surfaces, flawless strike, and deep mirrored fields. Add the coveted first strike label, which means the coin was among the very earliest produced, and you've got a formula for serious collector demand. Auction records prove it. At major sales and online platforms, 2014 gold Kennedy halves graded PR70 first strike have sold for $7,000, $8,000, even over $10,000, depending on the timing and the demand. Considering the coin was sold by the Mint originally for under $1,250, that's an incredible return in a short span. And this is where the psychology of collecting comes in. The Kennedy series already has a built-in emotional connection for Americans. Combine that with the first and only U.S. gold half-dollar ever issued, struck for a major anniversary, and you get a coin that transcends typical modern issues. Think about it this way. In the long arc of U.S. coinage, how many half-dollars were ever struck in gold? Just this one. That makes it a historic one-off. Collectors love firsts, and they especially love unique milestones. Let's talk about values more clearly. Raw examples. Those that come straight from the Mint packaging often trade between $2,600 and $2,000, depending on gold prices. PCGS PR69 DCAM. These typically bring $2,500 to $3,500. PCGS PR70 DCAM. Now you're in elite territory. Expect values between $6,000 and $10,000 plus, with first strike and special labels commanding the very top end. Collectors of modern rarities know that the difference between a 69 and a 70 can be thousands of dollars, because perfection in grading is incredibly rare, and with gold coins, even the smallest imperfection or tiny hairline can ruin the chance at a top grade. Another factor at play is long-term demand. Kennedy half-dollars have been collected by millions of people for decades, from pocket change to specialized registry sets. The 2014 Gold Kennedy is the crown jewel of the entire series. For registry set competitors, owning one graded PR70 DCAM first strike isn't just a want, it's a must. And that competitive demand helps push prices higher year after year. But there's more. Every year that passes, more of these coins get locked away in permanent collections. That means fewer are available on the market, which creates a classic supply and demand situation. Scarcity drives value, and when scarcity is combined with emotional attachment, a president beloved by many, a design that's an American classic, the result is staggering prices that shock newcomers. So if you ever come across one of these gold Kennedys, know this: you're not just holding a $50, you're holding a piece of history, a coin that bridges tragedy, tribute, and the enduring power of memory, a coin that in the right grade has already changed hands for 5 figures, and may climb even higher in the years to come. And who knows? Maybe one day you'll be the one to find one in a dealer's case, or inherit one from a relative who ordered it from the mint. Back in 2014, if you do, remember this: perfection, rarity, and history combine to create treasures, and this gold Kennedy $50 is living proof of that. Sometimes the most valuable treasures are hiding in plain sight. Imagine pulling a 1974 $50 from circulation, a coin you'd normally think is worth 50 cents, and realizing it could actually be worth thousands. That's the reality with the 1974 double die obverse Kennedy $50, one of the boldest and most sought-after double dies in modern U.S. coinage. Let's set the stage. The Kennedy $50 series began in 1964, rushed into production just months after the assassination of President John F. Kennedy. The coin became an instant memorial, with people hoarding it straight from banks. For decades, the Kennedy $50 has been both a collector favorite and an American symbol, but hidden within the long-running series are varieties so dramatic that they've become legends. And the 1974 DDO is one of them. What makes it so special? The doubling on this coin is not subtle. On many minor double dies, you need magnification to even spot it. But with the 1974 the doubling is bold, especially on the inscriptions. The words "In God We Trust," "Liberty," and even the date show strong, clear doubling. Collectors often describe it as one of the most obvious double dies of the entire Kennedy $50 series. This kind of doubling happens during the die-making process, when the working die that strikes coins receives multiple misaligned impressions of the design. The result is letters and numbers that look doubled or shadowed. And in 1974 at the Denver Mint, one of those dies was prepared incorrectly, producing a run of coins with this dramatic error. Now let's talk numbers. The Denver Mint struck 79 million Kennedy $50 in 1974. Out of that huge number, only a fraction carry the double die obverse. That makes it a true scarcity, especially since most went into circulation and picked up where before collectors even realized what they had. Today, finding one in circulation is extremely difficult, but it does still happen, and that's part of the thrill. Imagine a coin worth hundreds, even thousands, just sitting in a change jar, waiting to be noticed. So what's it worth? Let's break it down by grade. In circulated condition, these coins often bring $100 to $200, depending on where. Even a heavily used example is worth far more than face value. In uncirculated condition, values jump dramatically. MS-63 to MS-64, typically $400 to $800. 65. Now we're talking serious money. Usually around $2,500 to $2,500. MS-66 incredibly rare, with prices soaring well above $5,000. And here's the kicker. At major auctions, PCGS-graded examples in top condition have sold for staggering 5-figure sums. One gorgeous PCGS MS-66 example, hammered for nearly $12,000, proving just how far collectors are willing to go to secure this variety. The demand isn't just about rarity, and it's about drama. Collectors love double dies because they're visible. You don't need specialized equipment to see the error. The doubling on the 1974 is so bold that even a beginner collector can spot it with the naked eye. That makes it one of the most exciting finds in the hobby, because there's no question once you see it, this is the real deal. Let's also talk about collector psychology. Kennedy $50 are already popular. Add in the fact that the 1974 is the strongest double die in the entire series, and you get a variety that serious Kennedy specialists consider a must-have. Many build full Kennedy sets, and if you want your set to be complete, you need this coin. That creates competitive demand, especially for high-grade pieces. But the story doesn't end there. The 1970s were a transitional era for American coinage. Silver had been removed from circulation coins just a few years earlier, and the Kennedy half had shifted to a copper nickel-clad composition. Most people saw these coins as ordinary pocket change. Almost nobody was checking for errors. That means the 1974 D double die flew under the radar for years, with thousands of pieces circulating freely before collectors realized its significance. Today, the variety is recognized by all the major grading services, PCGS, and GC-NX, and is listed in the Cherry Picker's Guide, the Bible of U.S. variety collecting. It is widely regarded as the #1 major variety in the Kennedy half-dollar series. So what's the lesson here? Never ignore your change. A simple glance at the words, "In God We Trust," on a 1974 D half-dollar could reveal a treasure worth thousands. And every year, as more examples are graded and locked into collections, the supply available to the market shrinks, driving prices even higher. In other words, the 1974 D double die obverse isn't just a coin. It's proof that history, rarity, and a sharp eye can transform 50 cents into a small fortune. So check your half-dollars carefully, because somewhere out there in a drawer, a coin jar, or even a roll of half-dollars from the bank, a 1974 DDO might be waiting, and finding one could change your collecting journey forever. Picture this, you're holding a 1972 Kennedy half-dollar. At first glance, it looks just like the millions of others struck that year at the Denver Mint. But then you flip it over, look closely at the reverse, and notice something strange. The initials FG, which stand for Frank Gasparo, the coin's designer, are missing from the field, to the right of the eagle's tail feathers. And just like that, your ordinary-looking coin has gone from being worth 50 cents to potentially thousands of dollars. This is the 1972 D No FG half-dollar, one of the most famous varieties in the entire Kennedy series. It's listed in the Cherry Picker's Guide as FS 901, and collectors have been chasing it for decades. Now let's rewind. By 1972, the Kennedy half-dollar had been in circulation for just 8 years. The coin had been created in 1964 as a tribute to President John F. Kennedy after his assassination in 1963. The design, by Chief Engraver Gilroy Roberts on the obverse and Assistant Engraver Frank Gasparo on the reverse, quickly became iconic. On the reverse, Gasparo's rendering of the presidential seal shows an eagle holding arrows and an olive branch with raised stars and the mottos surrounding it. And just beneath the eagle's right leg, tiny initials FG were included to credit Gasparo. But in 1972, something unusual happened at the Denver Mint. A pair of dies was over-polished during preparation. In an effort to remove clash marks and imperfections, mint workers essentially ground away too much detail from the die. As a result, when coins were struck, the FG initials were completely missing, erased by the polishing. That's how the No FG variety was born. Now keep this in mind, the Denver Mint struck an enormous number of half-dollars in 1972, over 141 million coins. That's a massive mintage, but only a tiny fraction were struck from the over-polished dies without the FG initials. This is what makes the variety so scarce and so valuable. Collectors love it because it's a clear, dramatic variety. You don't need magnification and you don't need advanced knowledge. A simple glance at the reverse, if there's no FG, means you've potentially struck gold, numismatically speaking. So let's talk about value, because this is where things get jaw-dropping. In circulated grades, even a worn example of the 1972 De No FJ can sell for $75 to $150. That's already hundreds of times its face value. In uncirculated condition, the numbers climb fast. MS63 to MS64 usually around $300 to $500, MS65 $1,000 or more. MS66 and above extremely rare, with values reaching $3,000 to $5,000, depending on the market and the strength of the missing initials. Auction records prove how serious collectors are about this variety. At heritage auctions, PCGS-graded examples in gem condition have sold for several $1,000s, shocking new collectors who had no idea such a simple detail could matter so much. The No FG phenomenon actually shows up in a few other years of Kennedy half-dollars, like 1966 and 1982, but the 1972 D is the most famous and widely collected. It's the one that every serious Kennedy set builder wants. and it's one of the few varieties that has crossed into mainstream collector knowledge. And here's the psychology behind it. When collectors build Kennedy half sets, they don't just want the regular issues. They want the errors, the varieties, the oddities that tell the full story of the series. The 1972 Dino FG is recognized by PCGS, NGC, Annex, and included in the Cherry Picker's Guide, which makes it an essential piece for registry set competitors. That competitive demand ensures prices remain strong. And in fact, they've only increased over the years as more collectors chase fewer available coins. Think about it, over 141 million half dollars were struck at Denver in 1972, but only a sliver of that mintage qualifies as the no FG. And of those, how many have survived in pristine gem condition? Very, very few. That's why the top-graded coins can be worth as much as a brand new car. So what's the takeaway? Never. The 1970D Kennedy half dollar holds a special place in U.S. coin history. At first glance, it may look like just another half dollar. But in reality, this coin is one of the most sought-after modern-era Kennedy halves, and here's why. Let's start with the numbers. In 1970, the Denver Mint struck just 215 million half dollars. That may sound like a lot, but for context, most Kennedy halves had mintages in the tens of millions. This made the 1970D the lowest mintage regular issue Kennedy half dollar ever released for circulation. And here's the kicker. They were never issued directly for circulation. Instead, they were only made available in official U.S. mint sets. That instantly limited how many collectors could get their hands on one, and we can't ignore the composition. By 1970, most U.S. coins had already transitioned out of silver, but the half dollar held on a little longer. The 1970D Kennedy was struck in 40% silver, making it the final regular issue Kennedy half with silver content. From 1971 onward, all circulating halves were made of copper nickel. So this coin marked the end of an era. Now let's talk values. Circulated examples might fetch a modest premium, but the real excitement is in high-grade, uncirculated and proof-like specimens. In Mint State 65, the coin can reach into the hundreds of dollars. Push it up into MS 67 and you're talking several thousand. And here's where things get staggering. Top population coins, especially those with strong strikes, flashy luster or attractive toning, have pushed auction prices into the five-figure range. That's right. A coin pulled from a 1970 mint set has sold for well over $10,000 when certified in the finest condition. Why such demand? It comes down to supply and scarcity dynamics. Collectors building Kennedy half-dollar sets, whether by date, mint, or registry quality, all hit a major roadblock with the 1970D. It's the coin that every complete set must have, but it simply isn't out there in large numbers. That scarcity drives competition, and competition drives price. The coin also carries symbolic weight. Struck just 6 years after the assassination of President Kennedy, these half dollars were still seen as a powerful tribute. Collectors of the time often hoarded Kennedy halves straight from banks and mint sets, keeping them tucked away. That habit of preservation means many 1970Ds survived. But the truly pristine gem-level coins are few and far between. When one appears at auction, it becomes a headline. We've seen remarkable results when toned. Examples with rainbow colors cross the block, with bidders battling fiercely. For some collectors, it isn't just about owning the coin, it's about owning the best. And here's something else to consider. Because the 1970D was never released into general circulation, nearly every example today traces back to original mint sets, and that means if you stumble across one raw, in a collection, or even sitting in a coin dealer's box, it could be worth far more than the $13 face value of that old mint set. So the lesson here is simple. Check those mint sets. A 1970D Kennedy half dollar, in ordinary condition, will always be desirable. But in gem condition, with that frosty luster and sharp strike, it becomes a coin that collectors will pay staggering amounts to own. The 1970D is more than just silver. It's a cornerstone of the Kennedy half dollar series, the last of its kind, and a coin that proves even in modern U.S. coinage, True scarcity and collector demand can create jaw-dropping value. Imagine opening a dusty 1964 proof set that's been sitting in a drawer for decades. At first glance, you see nothing unusual. Just a shiny $50 with President Kennedy's portrait. But under magnification, something leaps out. The letters look doubled. The date looks strange. And suddenly you realize what you're holding. This is no ordinary coin. This is the legendary 1964 proof doubled die obverse Kennedy $50, a coin that has shocked collectors with values that soar into the five-figure range. One proof example with deep cameo contrast has fetched well over $20,000 at auction. Another has sold for nearly $25,000. And all of this for a coin that originally came inside a set selling for just a few dollars at the mint in 1964. Let's step back and set the scene. The Kennedy $50 was born out of national tragedy. After President John F. Kennedy's assassination in November of 1963, the mint moved with incredible speed to design and release a coin honoring him. By early 1964, the new $50 was ready. Collectors and the general public alike rushed to get them. And because 1964 was the first year, the mint produced both circulation strikes and proof coins for collectors. The proofs were supposed to be flawless. Proofs are carefully struck, using polished dies and specially prepared blanks to create coins with mirror-like surfaces and frosty designs. These are the showpieces of the U.S. Mint. The coins, meant to represent perfection, and yet even here an error slipped through. A proof die used in 1964 developed strong doubling on the obverse, creating one of the most spectacular modern varieties. What makes this doubled die so special? Look closely at the motto, "In God We Trust." The doubling is dramatic. Not light machine doubling, not a faint shift, but bold true hub doubling. The letters appear doubled to the naked eye. The word liberty and the date show the same effect. Collectors crave this kind of dramatic doubling because it's obvious, undeniable, and extremely rare, especially in a proof coin. Now, how rare are we talking? Well, the mint struck about 3.9 million proof coins in 1964, but only a tiny fraction of those sets contained this variety. Exact numbers are impossible to know, but specialists estimate that maybe a few dozen, or at most a few hundred, exist in collectible condition. When you compare that to the millions of ordinary 1964 proofs floating around, you start to see why this double die is so elusive. And the market proves it. A normal 1964 proof Kennedy $50 might sell for $20, $30, maybe $50 in average condition. If it has nice cameo contrast, maybe a few $100s at the high end. But once that doubling is present, the price tag skyrockets. Certified examples in proof 65 and proof 66 have commanded thousands. Deep cameo pieces, the kind with frosty white devices against jet black fields, can and do hit $20,000 to $25. We know, think about that for a second. A coin that was struck in huge numbers, suddenly transformed into a rarity worth more than a new car, all because of a doubled die. To put this into perspective, let's compare it to other famous doubled dies. The 1955 double die cent, one of the most famous error coins of all time, sells for around $1,000 to $2,000 in decent, circulated condition, and several thousand in mint state. The 1969 double die cent, that coin has sold for over $100,000. But those are circulation strikes, coins that slipped into everyday pocket change. The 1964 proof double die $50 is different. This error happened in a proof coin, a coin that was supposed to be perfect. That makes it almost unique within U.S. numismatics. Now let's talk about grading and why it matters. Proof coins are graded on the same numerical scale, from PR60 to PR70. But with Kennedy halves, designations like cameo and deep cameo can double or triple the value. A regular 1964 double die proof in PR65 might sell for $5,000 to $7,000. Add a cameo designation and you're looking at $10,000 to $15,000. Deep cameo? That's where we hit the $20,000 to $25,000 range, sometimes even more if the coin has great eye appeal and strong doubling. And because these are proofs, condition is everything. Even a few hairlines or faint spots can reduce the price dramatically. Collectors who specialize in Kennedy halves know this coin is a trophy piece. Many never see one in person. It's one of those varieties that registry set collectors Must have if they want to build the ultimate set, and that competition drives prices even higher. Every time one comes to auction, there's a bidding war. And the truth is, as more collectors focus on varieties, the demand for coins like this is only going to grow. But here's the best part. Examples could still be hiding. Remember, most of these coins came from proof sets, sold in 1964. Millions of sets were made. Many were opened. Some were tucked away in drawers, safes, or attics. Families might still have them, sitting untouched since the 1960s. And inside those sets, once in a while, is the jackpot. A proof doubled die worth tens of thousands of dollars. That's why collectors always say, check your coins. Don't assume that proof set you inherited is just worth 20s. Look closely at the $50. Get a loop, check the motto, check the date. If you see bold doubling, you might be holding one of the rarest Kennedy $50 in existence, the 1964 proof doubled die obverse. Kennedy $50 is more than just an error. It's a combination of history, tragedy, artistry, and accident, all rolled into one coin. It came from the very first year of the Kennedy series, struck in 90% silver, meant as a tribute to a fallen president, and yet it carries this remarkable flaw that turns it into something even more valuable. It's a symbol of how even in perfection, there can be imperfection, and how that imperfection can be worth a fortune. So the next time you see a 1964 proof set, don't just glance at it. Take a closer look. Because inside that simple box, in a coin you might think is ordinary, could be a treasure worth as much as a brand new car, or more. And all because of a doubled die. Imagine paying just a few dollars for a US Mint coin set, and decades later realizing one coin inside is now worth over $5,000. Son, that's the reality of the 1998 Mata Finish Special Mint Set Silver Kennedy $50. Only 62,000 were ever made, and in perfect condition. These coins have stunned collectors by reaching record auction prices of $4,500, $5,000, and in some cases, even higher when fierce bidding wars break out. For a modern $50, that's a staggering number. Now here's why this coin is so different. In 1998, the U.S. Mint released a commemorative Robert F. Kennedy silver dollar. But in certain sets alongside that silver dollar came a Kennedy $50 unlike any other. Instead of the usual brilliant mirror-like proof, this coin was struck in 90% silver with a matte finish, a satiny texture that looks completely different from the proofs collectors were used to. It's bold, it's frosty, and it instantly stood out as unique. And then came the shocker, the mintage. Only 62,000 pieces were made. Compare that to the millions of standard proof Kennedy struck in 1998, and you'll see why this coin is in a league of its own. In fact, it has one of the lowest mintages of any regular issue or special issue Kennedy $50 ever produced. Now let's talk money again, because that's what collectors love. A normal 1998 proof Kennedy might be worth 20, maybe 30 in today's market. But the matte finish version, graded at the very top level SP70, this coin has repeatedly sold for $3,000, $4,000, and even over $5,000. PCGS and NGC population reports show just how few exist in that grade, and when one surfaces, the bidding is intense. Some experts believe the very finest examples could break $6,000 or more in the near future as demand continues to rise. That is a staggering leap from pocket change prices to thousands of dollars. But it's not just about the grade. The matte finish itself makes this coin visually stunning. The soft satiny fields and frosty design give Kennedy's portrait a bold, sculpted look. It's unlike any other coin in the series. And because the Mint only produced this finish for 1 year, it instantly became a one-of-a-kind key issue. Registry set collectors know that without this coin, their set will never be complete. That pressure is what drives the price into the thousands. Scarcity combined with demand always equals value. And here scarcity couldn't be clearer. 62,000 struck. Many are now permanently locked away in collections. The actual number available on the open market is shrinking every year. That's why auction houses keep seeing fireworks when this coin appears. Let's make another comparison for perspective. The famous 1970 Kennedy $50. A key because it was only available in mint sets and has a mintage of about 2.1 million. That's more than 30 times higher than the $9,000 Mata finish, and yet even the 1970 can sell for hundreds in top grades. Now imagine how much scarcer the 1998 is. That's why its value keeps climbing into the thousands. Grading plays a massive role here. SP68 or SP69 examples might sell for hundreds, sometimes pushing into the low thousands. But SP70, the absolute top, that's where you see the shocking, jaw-dropping prices. $4,500, $5,000, and experts won't be surprised if we see $7,000 or more in the coming years. Collectors love modern rarities, and the 1998 S. Matte Finish Kennedy is the perfect storm silver content. A unique finish, ultra-low mintage, and 1-year only production. It is literally unlike any other Kennedy half-dollar ever struck. So what's the takeaway? If you come across a 1998 proof set with a Kennedy half that doesn't shine like a mirror, but instead has that beautiful, soft satiny surface, and don't pass it by, you might be looking at a modern treasure worth thousands of dollars. In fact, the right coin in the right grade could change your entire collection. The 1998 S. Matte Finish Silver Kennedy half-dollar isn't just another half-dollar. It's a modern rarity with maximum shock value. A coin that proves even in recent decades, the mint has produced treasures that can rival the great key dates of the past. With auction prices already breaking the $5,000 mark and the potential for even higher records, it stands as one of the most important Kennedy halves ever made. So check your collections carefully, because if you find one of these, you won't just be holding silver, you'll be holding a coin that represents the very best of scarcity, demand, and staggering value. A coin that can truly take your breath away.